I'm Jeff Kennedy, Space Surfer, joining you with another episode of Learn to Surf. And this week we have basic surfing instruction. I'm standing here with a beginner surfboard. These are very similar to a Boogie board in that they're soft. So if they do hit you, they're not as bad as a regular board. And they kind of get you familiarized with the board, being out in the waves and tussling around, that type of nature. Now these boards do have fins. These fins are a little bit sharp, so we have to be careful of those. The back of the board is referred to as the tail. The front of the board is referred to as the nose. The two sides of the boards are referred to as the rails. Now the bottom is slick, and that's so the board can go fast across the water. The top of the board, we put a wax coating on it, and that just gives it a little bit of grip. We're gonna kind of get started with the conditions for the day. It's a really good day of surfing, glassy waves. This is just the end of April, getting into May. This is really learn to surf season in Cocoa Beach. Here with me today, I have Chris and Nicole. Now these two are beginners. They've never surfed before, is that correct? Yeah. And how old are you, Nicole?
I'm 30.
Nicole is 30, and Chris?
35.
35. So these aren't just kids. We're teaching adult surfing instruction today. So before we get out in the water, I want to show you a basic pop-up, how to get up on the surfboard so that when you get out in the water, you're actually able to do what I'm about to show you. Ideally, when you're learning, you want someone to actually get you on the wave so you can focus on the actual getting up on the surfboard. If you're trying to focus on paddling, catching the wave, and all the other aspects of surfing while you're trying to stand up and ride the wave, you're really going to have a difficult time. This is the first reason why I recommend getting a surf instructor. Now when you go to stand on the surfboard, there's two main stances. Either stance is appropriate. This is what they call a goofy foot stance. It doesn't mean that you're goofy, it just means that your left foot happens to be in the back and your right foot is forward. There's also a second stance which is called regular foot. This is the preferred stance of right-handed people, whereas goofy foot is the stance of generally a left-handed person. Now, either way is fine, but what you're trying to do is make sure that you don't stand like so. This is what they call a tiki position. If you stand like so, the board's going to be really wobbly as you're going to try to balance side to side, and the board is relatively narrow. Ideally, what we want to do is treat the board like a balance beam, utilizing the length of the surfboard. So we want to use the front foot as our gas pedal, the back foot as our brakes, and when we ride the wave, we want to make sure we look where we're going, okay? And that's really important to know. So for example, if you're worried about running someone over when you surf, never look at the person. If you look at the person, chances are you're going to go directly toward that person and hit them. My suggestion, look away from the person and chances are you'll drive away from them. I want to make sure that we have a nice triangulated stance on the surfboard, keeping our weight low, using our knees as a spring or like a shock absorber, if you will, okay? Because the wave is going to bounce us around out there, but we're going to try to, stay on the wave as long as possible. If you stand up on the wave, most times when people first get on a wave, they like to be up and like, whee, I'm surfing, and their knees are locked, and they stand up for a moment and they fall over. But we're gonna kind of work into a real surfing stance, which is more knees bent, all of your weight on your front foot, all on the gas pedal, looking forward, leaning forward, going forward. So starting out, when you're getting on the board, you're not gonna be able to really see the back of the board, but you can feel it with your toes. We call this toes at the tail. All right, make sure that you can just feel the back edge of the board. This is good so that when I push you onto the wave, you don't do what they call a nosedive. It looks really cool from the shore. You kind of go up and over the front end. We've all done it before, but we'll try to avoid that at all costs today. Likewise, your hands are very important. If you grab forward on the surfboard like so, you're more than likely going to do what they call a paw into the wave, which is also going to push your weight too far forward and translate into that nosedive that we were discussing. So back here, toes at the tail. Make sure you get your hands back here. I like to call it the chicken wing. Make sure you have a nice chicken wing hand. That way you know your hands are nice and center positioned on the board, toes touching the tail. What you want to do is stand up on those toes, utilizing your toes, even using the spring in the toes to allow yourself to jump forward, all right? The same as you would do in a push-up. From here, you can push up just like so, all right? You can also do it if you're off your knees if preferred, but I always recommend doing the standard push-up as it allows for the most length between you and the board. Now, if you go out by yourself, you're gonna need to paddle. Nice long strokes across the sides of the board. Make sure you don't do any of this. Go to jump up, get your hands back with that nice chicken wing. Stand up on those tippy toes, push straight up. Jump into that front foot position, leaning your weight over your front foot, straight like this, riding all the way to the beach. Another part of surfing that's very difficult is identifying which wave to pick. You're going to learn that through the process of learning to surf. You're also going to learn how to paddle through learning how to surf. And again, why I recommend using an instructor. Each of the boards is going to have a leash on it. The leash goes on your foot, obviously. It goes on your back foot. I happen to be a goofy foot, so I put it around my left leg, like so, putting the cushion part around my leg and wrapping the strap. Now, surfboard leashes have what they call a leash horn that allows it to stick out. You want to point that out away from your feet. It helps to keep the leash from getting tangled in between your feet when you're out there. Okay, and we're going to start out toes to the tail, standing up on those toes. Got your chicken wings, very good. Going to go ahead and push straight up, jumping into that stance, getting nice and centered. Chris, your weight's on your back foot. That's a tendency you got. Lean forward a little bit, keep that head up, push up, and ride the wave. You guys ready to go rip?
Yeah.
Awesome. When using a learner-specific surfboard, it is okay to enter the water by picking the board up by the nose, allowing the tail to drag on the ground. Make sure not to allow the board to get sideways like so. Also, make sure to let the board go above the water when walking out, or you'll end up like Chris here.